the media starts just directly, and they're branding everybody there as domestic terrorists, right? Harry Reid gets on TV. He says these aren't patriots; these are domestic terrorists, right? And that was the first time I had really heard that, right? And it was chilling, and it made me mad, right? But the idea is I started to see the narrative across all spectrums, and they start to paint you as this anti-government extremist, right? And I'm not anti-government. I'm pro-responsible government, but I'm not anti-government. And now the right-wing white supremacy, anti-government militia, right? All these key words that they like to use. I denounce all forms of supremacy, religious, racial. It's just, that's who I am. I'm an American. I believe in liberty and the republic for everybody. So it was just really baffling to me. Nobody called me to ask me my political beliefs. Nobody called me to ask me why I was there. Nobody called me to ask me why I went prone, right? None of the mainstream media outlets, right? But they all had their story, and they ran with it. And so about 2 years later, we get indicted and arrested. Hadn't been in any trouble since. Nothing, just boom, we get arrested. Put into solitary confinement I was in solitary confinement for, 90 days, I think.
Wow.
And I ended up being in federal detention for 18 months, trying to get to trial and through my trials, right?
So you spent 18 months. You spent 18 months in detention prior to the trial even beginning.
Well, about a year before the first trial.
First trial, they had you there 12 months. Wow.
Yeah. So 90 days solitary confinement. We come out. We start to do these hearings, and I think I have the right to a speedy trial, right? I'm a little naive at this point. So we go in, and I quickly find out that the prosecution, the government, asserts its own rights in a trial, in a criminal trial, and a lot of times, most times actually, they trump what are supposed to be the rights of the accused. Speedy trial, public trial, all these, the first, I think there's 5 or 6 amendments that have direct correlation with the rights of the accused, right? And it says the accused shall enjoy the right to a speedy trial, right? That's not true. What happens is the government asserts its rights. They assert that they're more important than your rights, and they put down what's called they call it a complex case. And now legally, that gives them the ability to put the trial off for up to 5 years.
Wow!
Right? And I met plenty of people in there, sitting there for years, waiting for their trial. It wasn't just us, right? And the criminal justice reform that I saw that was needed, I could go for hours about different things, but really what I'd like to get across is government asserts its rights over ours, and it's no longer innocent until proven guilty. It's guilty until you prove yourself innocent. The fundamental principles that we had in our criminal justice system are upside down. And I believe that it all starts when the government asserts that it has rights, period. The government was never intended to have rights. They were intended to have responsibilities. And now they've taken their rights and they've put them above our rights, and everything's on its head. And I think if we don't get at these fundamental principles, then we're never really going to fix anything. We can go around putting on Band-Aids and trying to, maybe get rid of nonviolent crimes. We can try to do all these things, which are conservative ideas, I say, because I don't want my tax dollars paying for prisons. right now again, and with the 6th. All these things that I'm telling you, we've got probably 500 people going through very similar things right now. Media Matters just picked up off of my Twitter. I was telling Tucker on Twitter that these are the things we've been saying for years. Because they're just now starting to gather the idea that the federal government has agents and players inside these situations that occur, and we're seeing it. They've just publicly started calling out Stuart Rhodes. Revolver did an article on Stuart Rhodes asking some pretty serious questions. Well, these are the same questions I was asking about Stuart Rhodes in 2016 when I was in federal lockup. He was all over our discovery as well. And he was the Oath Keepers, right? They came to the ranch. They handed out, Stuart Rhodes handed out body armor and loaded magazines to people at that protest. That was the accusation in my detention hearing, right? Again, the Oath Keepers, the big bad boogeymen, who I had nothing to do with, are in my detention hearing too, just like they're in these people's detention hearings. Who wasn't indicted for the Bundy Ranch? Stuart Rhodes. He made it through the whole thing without being indicted. It was very strange. And now here we are again, and it seems like he's got cover from the DOJ again. And yet if we look at the 6th, we can all agree that the biggest, scariest part of the 6th, allegedly, is this QRF, right?
Which is what?
Which is called a quick response force. And so allegedly, person 1 in this criminal paperwork planned and executed a QRF team, a quick response team that was armed on the other side of the river, ready to respond to the Capitol. That is where they get their narrative of this insurrection, and that is supposedly the scariest part of the 6th. Well, person 1 is publicly Stuart Rhodes. He's admitted it. They've admitted it. Now, in what world does person 1 not get indicted? I sat in detention for a year because I was allegedly so dangerous that I couldn't be outside to fight my case. Now, it seems like it would be policy and procedure for them to take somebody that's supposedly the head of the biggest, scariest, quote, militia, right-wing anti-government extremist militia, to detain him. And they're not doing that. So we're seeing a lot of these same things. And I know that's kind of a lot to put out there, but if you go look at these articles put out by Revolver, they're asking a lot of the same questions we were. And I think they're good questions, because if the FBI is directly involved with the scariest part of the alleged scariest day since Pearl Harbor, I think the American people need to know about it. And so I suggest you guys out there in North Dakota look up that article from Revolver and start asking these questions. How much knowledge did the FBI really have? Because we saw it at Malheur too, with the wildlife refuge takeover. There was 16 federal informants inside the refuge with the occupiers. One of those,
you mean in Oregon, you mean?
Yeah, in Oregon. Right.
Wow.
Sorry, I'm all over the place.
Yeah, so you were in Oregon as well.
16 of them. We were at Burns. We didn't go into the refuge, but we were there trying to work the narrative and trying to get communication to occur between the occupiers and the FBI. We were really worried that we were going to see some deaths, and unfortunately we did. The FBI ordered the body cams shut off when Lavoy Finicum was shot in a box canyon on his way to talk to a sheriff.
Such a weird coincidence.
In the next county over.
Yeah, that's a whole nother hour-long conversation.
It really is, but I like to connect these dots.
Yeah,
because really what we're talking about is a government that is arrogant and thinks it can do whatever it wants through its FBI. And right now the conversation seems to be pushing towards some sort of domestic spying agency or giving the FBI at least that authority to do so. And really, I think on both sides of the aisle here, we need to stop and take a breather and say, okay, what is the FBI's playbook? What do they do?
Yeah.
Whether we're talking about jihadists, Islamic extremists, we've seen it over and over and over again. The FBI gets involved with these things up to their neck. And if that is the case, we really should reconsider giving them any extra authority and maybe even taking some of it away. Well, and there's the idea that there's people sitting there right now.
Yeah.
That's what bugs me, right?
Yeah.
And I look at their detention hearings and I see the similarities that they're creating these boogeymen. And now I'm seeing it come out, some of the same questions we were asking before, like, are these boogeymen, how involved are these boogeymen with the FBI, with these agencies? And it's a legitimate question and it should be asked, right? The idea that we're coming back into a lot of the same stuff, it's all goes back to me in the way I see it is an out of control executive branch, right, and their agencies, and where their jurisdiction and real charters lie, and what they were supposed to be doing from the beginning and what they do now, and what we're seeing them do now is just 360 degrees from what I would like to see my FBI doing. The idea that they shut off the body cam, there's a wrongful death lawsuit going on right now. Lavoy Finicum's wife she's got a wrongful death lawsuit against the FBI, and we have these opportunities where we can really fight, not memes, but it takes money, like you mentioned. The opposition that we face here has unlimited resources, right? And to continue this wrongful death suit, which needs to happen because as the FBI is trying to manipulate and do the same things they did to us, to these 500 people, we need to be fighting them on the back end. We have to have multiple fronts. And there's a very good battle going on right now, but she needs your help. One cowboy stand for freedom. She needs money. She needs money now. It's going to take $250,000 to get this wrongful death suit through. And it's a good case. It's a good case. They should not have shot and killed Lavoy Finicum. He would have been acquitted, just like the rest of them.
Yeah.
They all walked and he would have been acquitted. And this is a solid case. But the woman needs $250,000 to fight. That's the real fight going on.
Isn't it kind of crazy thinking about how in our legal system that, allegedly we have these rights, and it takes so much money and so much time to stand up for something that is obviously right. Like, there's no argument about it, but it takes so much. It just takes so much, and every year it gets more and more expensive. And it's not just like attorneys; it's time too. I mean, like, you have people that are on the hook for years working cases, doing their due diligence, and after everything's said and done, see, the thing is, the federal government doesn't care after you last 2 years of your life, or you last 3 or 5 years of your life sitting there trying to prove your innocence. They don't care. They just go back to work the next day, and then they look for the next target, the next person that they're going to do this to.
They absolutely, they absolutely don't care, and they continue, right? I mean, I mark my words. I'll probably get indicted again before my lifetime ends, and it'll be ridiculous. And I guarantee you, it'll be because I was standing up for fundamental principles of our country and my neighbors. And that's the thing. That's the issue, is we're going to be there again. There's people fighting it right now. One cowboy stand for liberty. Go there, and if you can, donate. Help her with her wrongful death suit. Get back at the FBI. Hit them from behind.
Hi, my name's Eric Parker. I'm running for state senate here in Idaho. If you'd like to know more about my campaign, go to parkerforidaho.com. You can also follow the campaign on Telegram and on Facebook. We'll put the links in the descriptions below.